So welcome, my name's Stuart Easton from TransparentChoice. And as you can tell, I'm not in the UK right now. I'm in Dubai. Behind me here, somewhere here, there we go, you can see it just there, is the Burj Al Arab, the world's first 7-star hotel or some such thing. And I'm actually at the PMI's Dubai International Project Management Forum this week. And just to give you an idea, that it's all in Dubai. This is the pool and the resort, and it's absolutely beautiful. So just up here behind me, you have all the speakers from the event, just about to sit down to dinner, and we may hear from one or two of them later on. We'll see how we get on. But I figured it'd be fun to maybe try and pull one or two of them into the conference as well today. So today's topic is about executives, right? And why don't they get it? So I do lots of these conferences, and the most common question that I get on conferences and on webinars is some form of the question: why don't execs support my PMO? Why don't they get it? Why don't they understand project management, and so on and so forth? And more importantly, how do I get their buy-in? How do I get their support for the PMO and all the changes that we need to make? And so to help answer these questions, we have with us tonight a good friend of mine and new dad, Alexander David. So Alexander is a PMO consultant based in the UK. He's been doing PMO work for, Alexander, help me out, 20 years, something like that, some ridiculous period.
Yeah, something like something. Yeah, too long to be honest to remember. But I think, like I said, yeah, it's about that time really, with different companies and different challenges I've seen so far. So I'll let you finish first, Stuart, then I'll go.
Yeah, absolutely. And Alexander's worked at organizations like Jaguar Land Rover, Network Rail, done work with Starbucks and others to help set up and build really high performance PMOs. And the reason I invited Alex for this session in particular is that his superpower is exactly what we're talking about today. His superpower is getting the execs to buy in, helping take them on a journey to understand what the value is, and how to get their commitment to a plan of action to make changes. So what we're going to do, what I'd like first is, Alex, if you could just introduce yourself and then talk for a few minutes, if you would, about why is it that execs don't buy in?
Definitely, first of all, definitely jealous of Stuart right now. You know, I'd love to be there right now, but especially it's -1 in the UK, and yeah, it's not nice. I mean, yeah, I can tell you we're not getting enough sun, for sure. So how long we know each other? I think probably 5 years now, Stuart, we know each other. So we've been through quite a few challenges with the different companies and seen some use cases. Like Stuart mentioned earlier, I've been through some good companies, some bad, some amazingly innovative, and some really going through the stages of improvement. And one of the common challenges, like Stuart mentioned earlier, keep coming back is, okay, how do I get my executive on board? Because that's the one thing, because how do I get the right sponsorship? And I think for me, from what I learned from my experience for the past years, it all comes down to the language. You know, it's quite simple for me to say is, what do executives care about? So it's using their language. And I know all of us as a PMO professionals, we talk about process, standards, the tooling. We talk about, procedures and the workflows and all the good stuff and controls. But executives don't care any of that. They don't understand. They don't care. And what matters to them is all about value. Because that's what they're focusing on. Because that's what they're getting scrutiny for from the business. So how do we make sure?
So before we get into what they want,
yeah,
let me ask you this: what are some of the symptoms that, how would you know if your execs aren't buying in? What are some of the symptoms? And folks on the call, please jump into that Q&A bit and share your stories and your symptoms. What is it that you observe that is an indication the execs aren't buying in?
So there are three things they struggle with is the visibility, not having enough visibility what's happening in the business, and they're not getting it from the PMO they have. And that's why they're not going to buy into it. The second thing is the controls. They're not understanding what improvements a PMO will provide or is providing to the business in order to minimize, let's say, margin erosions or improving the benefits, for example, for the business. So they're not understanding that bigger picture. And third one is it's the execution, classic. Are we delivering more things with the same number of people? So how's the people are doing? How's the resources doing? How are we delivering our projects? So not having those three things quite clearly articulated and not clearly translated to the executive. And that's a few of the symptoms that you start seeing they don't buy into it. And some of the symptoms, other symptoms I've observed is they're saying yes to everything. Surprisingly, with people saying they're saying yes because they're not understanding the consequence or they're not understanding their take or involvement into the PMO change. The second thing is they say no to everything, which is quite classic. Don't want to hear it, don't want to listen to you. It's because they don't really understand. They don't understand what the PMO is adding a value. For them, it's a cost center. I'm spending lots of money, but I'm not getting anything out of this. And the third classic problem is not providing you with the right tools and resources for you to do the job properly. Because you can't win the PMO challenge without having the right support. So you're not getting executive buy-in, you're not getting a sponsorship, you're not getting the resources for you to do your job properly. And those are some of the symptoms I keep seeing in the most of the companies recently. Recently, I was speaking to someone last week, Stuart. I think she mentioned to me, she came to me saying, actually, I've been hired to deliver a PMO, but they haven't given me any resources or budget to do anything. They expect me to fix everything, but they haven't given me any support. And when I asked for some support, they're saying that's your job to go and do it. So I'm currently helping her going through a coaching cycle to say, okay, how do we overcome those challenges? But those are some of the classic things I'm going to start seeing where we start seeing those symptoms where they're either saying no to you all the time, or they're saying yes. It means they're not getting it because they're not providing the support you need, or they're not giving you the right resources to do the job. So those are the three things for me I've seen in my past experience that keep happening. So
excellent. So, and Ashok's thrown a couple others in, which is they tend not to read your reports. I like that one, Ashok. And they don't turn up or complete actions that you need them to approve, right? So if decision making is slowing down, that's probably a good sign that someone's not buying into something. Doesn't have the information they need or whatever it may be. And then Alexis, like yours as well, this is great. So very much execs focusing on projects within their own area, at the expense perhaps of projects in other parts of the organization, and possibly even cutting the PMO out altogether.
Exactly.
So all of that is kind of a question. Now, one of the things, so there was a study a little while ago, it's probably 5 or 6 years ago now, that looked at PMOs and asked the question, basically, is the PMO being called into question? And 72% of PMOs were being called into question by the executive team. So the people around that executive table are sitting there having a conversation, basically saying, does this PMO, does this project delivery organization actually add any value?
Yeah.
They may not be having that discussion with you. That doesn't mean they're not having it. So you've got to look for these other symptoms. So please, everybody, this is a learning exercise together. If you have other symptoms, Steve, hey, welcome, my friend. Steve's talking about execs gaming the process. That's a great symptom, right? So if execs are trying to game the process or trying to force you down one path or another path, it's a great symptom that they're not buying into the processes and decision-making, governance, portfolio management kind of processes that you've got. So you're seeing these symptoms, Alex. What in your experience are some of the key causes? You were touching on some of them earlier on, but what are some of the key causes of these problems, this lack of trust and buy-in?
So I think I think there's some you're going in and out, but I think I got what you mean. So I think for me, what I've observed, again, I've used my observation and the past experience rather than giving you a hypothetical answer. I want to give you the recent examples I've seen. It's more around not understanding. So exec have their own problems. So they ask things which keep them awake day and night. They have investors sitting on the door asking for the payback. They have boards, needs reports. They need to understand the performance of the business. But what they struggle with is not understanding the process, the controls, and the governance. How does it help me to deliver those values? And I think those are some of the areas where I normally work on, and we're working on some of the businesses I'm currently helping, is to the link between the problems the exec having or the languages they understand to the stuff the PMO can provide. Because they don't really understand the full remit of PMO can have. For me, the way I see PMO, and I'm sure people on the call will have the same view, PMO is like a clay. How far do you want to mold it? You can turn it into the shape you want it to. You can make it as wide as possible. But the exec need to understand that benefits. They need to understand the value. But they can only understand if you bridge those links to say, okay, here's your problems. Here's the things we can fix for you. Unless that link is clear, it becomes really hard to translate what you're trying to say and what they actually need. And that's why I use a terminology which Stuart is now bored of. I've used it so many times in all the calls we've been in. I call it case for change, which is different from a business case, which is all about what case are we making to change the business? Because PMO
Well,
is not a change. Sorry, the change you make on PMO is not led by PMO. It's a business change and it's led by the business, the benefit stage of the business. So that connection is really important.
so Ashok has made an interesting comment here, which is very relevant. Just kind of beginning to go into the next part of the discussion. So Ashok says, when funding is requested and promised, basically it doesn't turn up, right? So that's a symptom, right? That's a sign that there's no buy-in. And so the next part of the conversation is how do we start to build the buy-in to get the resources, to get the budget, to get the. It's not always about people and resources. Sometimes it's about just support, right? People turning up to meetings. It could be that simple. So as Alex said, we kind of work when we're working together. We do something called a case for change. So do you want to talk a little bit about that process and take your time, because I really want people to think about this and to think about how they can do it in their organization, implement it within their own organization.
No. I think I'm going to go slightly taking a couple of steps back. So when people think about the PMO transformation or portfolio management change, the first thing to think about the process standards or tooling. And people jump to the conclusion, oh, I need a tool in order to deliver my PMO, or I need a tool to help me get those visibility I need. But what the case for change from my learning over the last few years with businesses, we've established a high-performing PMO is always saying, let's take 2 steps back. The first 2 steps are all about, do we know what the problems are in the business? What are we trying to fix? Why do we need a PMO in the first place? Why do we need to pay X amount of funding, X amount of salaries to those individuals to do that piece of work? Why do we need them? So what are those problems in the organization they're fixing? So that's what the case for change does. Take it all the way back to the root cause, understand the needs of the business units, the functions, your product cycles or whatever functions you have in your businesses, and executive to understand what they need to put together a plan, a roadmap to say, how are you going to fix them? The difference between the normal business case and the case for change, it focuses on the high value outcomes you can deliver in the sprints. So we do this in 3-month sprints or 90-day sprints. What that does it creates that momentum from the executive all the way down to the function leads, that they can understand what value they'll be getting from a PMO in the coming months. Because if you tell them, okay, I need a tool and I need the process, I need the people, but you're not going to get results in 18 months' time, you're not going to get any buy-in. I made those mistakes myself long time ago, doing it that way. But doing in 90-day sprints because people want to see the value quickly. They want to see where we are now and how you're going to make the changes. Because that's the only way of getting the buy-in from executive, keeping them excited. But at the same time, you have other stakeholders. So don't forget executive. Yes, we talking about executive over here, but as a PMO, the job is quite difficult because you have executive, but you do have project managers. In some cases, you have, let's say, other head of functions. So you have to please everyone. But I'm not saying you have to please everyone. You have to take them through the journey. Because part of the PMO job is you will become that person people hate. Because you're going to be shed light on some of the areas where they should be doing something, but they're not doing it. But in some areas, as long as you get people to go through that journey with you, that's the main thing. And that's what the case for change does. It focuses on the high value improvements you can deliver on those 90-day sprints. And the first 90 days is all about how can we get executive buy-in. And the 90 days focusing on the pain points the executive have and trying to fix them as quickly as possible to show them the benefit so we have that buy-in going through all the way through those cycles. And the way we structure it, sorry, go.
So Alex, sorry, just to interrupt.
Yeah.
So we've got a question from Guy, which I'm going to come to in just a second. Good to see you, Guy, by the way. So you talked about some of the pain points from executives. Let's slow down a little bit, right? You've done this more times than almost anybody else I know. You probably to talk to someone who's done this more than you have, you probably have to get to a Laura Barnard or a Joe Puz or somebody like that, right? So when you talk to the executives, what is the pain that they have? And to get started, I'm going to give the obvious ones, right? So every executive I've ever talked to says that projects take too long, they cost too much, and usually they don't actually deliver the benefit that was desired in the first place. Right. So those are some of the pain points that executives have. Those are sort of the big, real top level ones. What are some of the other kind of more detailed, perhaps, pain points that you hear from executives? And you mentioned things like visibility earlier. So talk us through some of that in a bit more detail, if you would. Just some of the pain points that you hear.
Some of the pain points usually are strategic alignment. So what I mean by that is businesses have their strategic plan and goals. Like, for example, I need to grow my business by 10%. But what does it mean in actual terms and how are you going to make it happen? The translation of real-term outcome-based planning is not there in most companies. So you have your projects running in the cycle and you have a strategic objectives, but they don't link together properly. And that's one thing this executives struggle with to say, okay, I've got these strategic objectives I need to meet, but I'm not really sure the stuff I'm doing actually aligns with what I'm doing. And that's one of
and that's a great point. So some of the things you might hear there are comments like, well, we're always starting and stopping projects. Or they may say explicitly, there's no, we don't understand the link between the work we're doing and the strategy of the business. Or they may be saying things like, why are we doing that project? I don't think it's important. Someone else might think it's important, but I don't. Right. So around that strategic alignment, there are lots of ways for people to tell you that there's a problem with strategic alignment. In my experience, they don't usually sit there and say, strategic alignment's broken, right? They'll say something that's related to it. So your job is, I don't know if any of you have come across the concept of active listening, right? So active listening isn't just sitting there listening really hard. Active listening is asking questions and interacting with the answers that you're getting to discover more, right? So this whole process of discovery that Alex is talking about here is an exercise in active listening, in asking questions, listening to the answer and interpreting the answer, and then validating, have I interpreted that correctly, by asking more questions. So strategic alignment's one. What else, Alex?
The other one, it comes down to, and I know people talk about lesson learned. Lesson learned is a classic one, which I'm seeing recently with a client I'm currently working with. But people see lesson learned, oh, I need to wait for my project to finish and I'll learn my lesson. Or I need to initiate a lesson learned session at the start of every project. That's a normal generic way of thinking. But lesson learned are you learning all the way through. You're not waiting till the end and say, okay, what did I learn? Let's look back. You're learning all the way through, you're capturing it. But it's how do we understand from all those lessons, what are the systematic issue in the business and what are the just BAU kind of stuff you're finding? So what executives struggle with is why are we not learning our lessons? We made this mistake last month. We made a mistake last quarter. Why are we not learning these things? So how can we make that lesson learned exercise much more collaborative and effective and more real time? So we're not waiting till the end of the project and maybe 2 years, a year down the line. We're actually acting on them straight away. If you're finding a fix, you fix it. Like in a software company, Stuart, you see them, they have a bug, they go and fix it. Why can't we do this in a project cycle? Why can't we do this in big corporate companies? And that's what we're doing in real time. I can't tell you the name of the client, but we are currently doing exactly the same real time lesson learned deployment
Yeah.
into the systematic issues the business have. The other one is classic one, which I know you must have listened multiple people saying it. This is benefit realization or revenue or margin, depending the terminology you're using, is how do we realize those benefits into the business? And if you're on the other side of the customer, people who are actually delivering projects for customers, they have a problem with margin erosions. Okay, I'm losing money. How do I improve on, not losing that much money or not losing the margin? So I think those are the three things I've seen, but the last one is quite interesting.
And the other really big one is resources, right? How do we,
And
making decisions about resources.
yeah, and that comes down in the execution, really. I think where we have problem, firstly, capacity. And that goes back to where people wants to utilize people to 90%. I want to be my staff to be 90 to 100% utilized. But then you start, hang on a minute. If they 100% utilized, when are they learning? When are they collaborating? When they actually have the off time, basically, to train other staff. And to be honest, I've attended a few of Stuart's webinars, so I know Stuart, you talk about the 75 to 80% utilization, which is exactly what I'm doing with some of the clients you're working with, is you need to allow that time to grow your staff. Otherwise, you're never going to fix the problem because you're going to keep bringing more people, but the people you already have are fully utilized. So who's going to train the new people coming in?
Absolutely. And if you're overloading your people, having more
Exactly.
people just makes it more complicated. It doesn't
Exactly.
solve the problem. It makes it worse. So there's a couple of comments, Alex. I'm going to jump in with if that's
Yeah,
okay,
sure.
from the Q&A. So the first one, a shock. No, that is not a blue screen behind me. So this, I came over here because let me see if I just need to get back to so I can see what I'm pointing at. Okay, so this building here is the conference center. And this building here is the hotel. My room, just so you know, in case anybody wants to send me a box of chocolates later, is round about there, right? So I've got a great view out here. But the reason I'm showing you this is, look at this place. It's beautiful. It's gorgeous. It's expensive. This conference is sponsored, amongst others, by the RTA, the Road and Transport Authority here in Dubai. The government has sponsored this conference. Think about that. This topic today is about executive sponsorship. Sponsoring this, I have no idea what it costs to put on this conference, but it's got to be, $500,000, $1 million, something like that. I don't know. They've flown people from all around the world to come and talk at this conference, and there's 3,000 or 4,000 people here eagerly soaking it up, right? So the vision from at the government level, that for the nation to be successful, they need to get their arms wrapped around this. Projects are important for delivering the goals of the business, and those businesses are important for delivering the goals of the country, right? That's serious vision, right? Those guys get it. And so I'm not bragging and showing off and trying to make everybody jealous. Well, I am, obviously, but the point I'm trying to make is that this is a really good example of where executives kind of get it,
Yeah.
and they're putting the money where the mouth is, right? And saying,
And just to
okay,
clarify, Stuart, RTA is not sponsoring this webinar, yeah?
No, they're not. No. No, that's very true. Very true. No, there's no link between the PMI or any of this stuff. It's coincidental that I happen to be
Yeah.
here. Fantastic. So that was kind of the first comment. So no, it's not a blue screen, Ashok. Thank you for that. Um, One of the things that Tom, I wanted to come to yours. Was it Tom?
Yeah, man.
Yes. So Tom was asking, just he wanted to come back to something you said earlier. You know, can you include the retrospectives during the delivery cycle to add lessons learned and to deliver change throughout the process? You know, so while the project's live, in other words, I guess.
Exactly, Tom. That's the point. So because there are some two kind of lesson learned you're going to have. You got systematic issues you're going to be finding to change the overall process, or you're going to have a project specific one. Again, like I said, real lesson learned is a real time game. It's not something you wait till the end, you do it all the way through. But what you need is a clear ownership on this lesson learned, somebody who owns it. It's something systematic. It's not one-off exercise. We fixed it at this for a project and let's forget about it. You have to make sure that's been embedded in the business and somebody's owning it so we don't make the same mistake again. Because that's the problem I had with a recent client. They kept making the same mistake on 5 projects. Could you believe that 5 projects they had? They had the same thing. In a matter of 6 months, they were released.
Wow. Wow, that's brutal. That's brutal. Excellent. So yes, as close to real time as you can, then, folks. Okay, let's come back to so we've talked about what some of the symptoms might be.
Yeah.
We've talked about what some of the problems might be that the execs have. And very often those problems can be broken down. We joke about it, right? Where we say there are only 3 problems that they've got. They've got a lack of visibility, a lack of control, and a lack of execution. And if you can fix that, you can fix everything. And of course, we're being a bit funny when we say that, but you know but it's also kind of true. Do you think,
Yeah.
Alex?
It is, to be honest. I think those are the 3 buckets where most of the stuff we talk about. Because when you interview, I'm going to use Laura's language now. Me and Laura have been speaking quite frequently recently. So if I use her words, so it's about interviewing your stakeholders. What does your stakeholders want? What does your executive want? And when you start interviewing them, going back to Stuart's point earlier, the Stuart made, which is a good point actually, it's not active listening. Active listening is the key part, which is not just listening and just, taking in, but it's actually understanding, oh, is it the visibility you're lacking in? Or is it the controls? Because they will be talking a lot of stuff because they've got so many problems in the mindset. But now you actually start, I was shoehorning, but you start making them focus on the things what matters. Is it the controls we're lacking? Or is it the visibility you don't have? Or is it the execution? We're not executing properly. You start have to, because there's so many things people have problems with, but you need to start filtering them down to those 3 things. And from my observations, Will, I think you've seen this a few times as well, which is those are the 3 things we keep seeing. Those are the buckets we always have. Either you don't have visibility to make decisions, you don't have controls to make sure projects are executed properly, or you don't have good execution. Either you don't have right people or skills or resources to execute those projects, or you're overburdened with lots of stuff in order to do them. But those are the 3 things I keep saying more and more, basically.
And here's the really fun piece, right? So Alex just mentioned Laura, so he means Laura Barnard. So if any of you don't know Laura, go follow her right now. If you're in PMO and you don't follow Laura Barnard, shame on you. Steve Jenner's on this webinar as well. I would say the same thing about Steve, by the way. I can't quite see who else is on. I've seen Steve make comments, so I know he's on. So Steve Jenner, I would go follow him as well. And Laura's actually just up there having dinner right now. I spent a bunch of time with her today. And when she talks about this process, she talks about, interviewing your execs, doing this active listening thing, and then writing down their comments in their words. And then go away and sort of, pick the top 3 or something, right? And do a root cause analysis of where that pain's coming from. And once you've done that, what you usually find is that the same root causes keep cropping up again and again and again. So, for example, I was on, and thank you, I think it was Guy. Yeah, would you be able to share an example So let me give you one quick example. I happened to sit on one of Laura's mastermind sessions a few weeks ago. And one of the people in that session, one of the PMO leaders, had just gone through this process of interviewing the leadership team, doing the root cause analysis. And what she found was, let's say, for example, they had 10 pain points that the execs identified. She looked at 3 of them, did the root cause analysis, and what she found was that the same 3, that she basically came down to 3 root causes of the pain. One of them was project prioritization, one of them was resource planning, and I've forgotten what the third one was. And then what she did was she then followed it forward. So you start with the top, 2 or 3 problems. You go backwards, root cause, why? Don't stop, keep going, why, till you get right back to the root. You all know the 5 whys, the 6 whys, whatever it is. Yeah, right. Everybody knows that. We all know that technique, right? So use your 5 whys, get back to that root cause. And then what she did, and it was brilliant. This slide was so compelling. She started with those 3 root causes, and then she carried it forward. So she said, okay, if we fix these 3 root causes, what else do we fix? And what she showed was that if you fix just these 3 things, it would actually fix every one of their 10 pain points. So in other words, when you follow the root cause back from all these different pain points, you will probably find that there's a very small number of root cause problems that are driving the pain, right? And as I say, that pain could be something like, oh, I don't understand why we're doing that project, or the guy in the next office to me, he always seems to get his projects done and I never get mine done, or something, right? So those are obviously prioritization problems. So you do the root cause analysis and you'll eventually get back to prioritization. Yeah. If you have too many, if you don't have enough resources, by the way, that's not a resource management problem. When you do the root cause analysis, you will get back to a prioritization problem. It's not that you have too many resources. It's not that you don't have enough resources. It's that you've got too many projects or not enough focus, which is a prioritization problem. So when you do this, time and again, you will come back to these same few root causes that you see again and again and again. Sure, there's something about basic project methodologies, getting them in place. There is something about training your SROs so that they can actually sponsor projects. There's usually something about resources, right? Yeah. Capacity planning or resource management, right? And there's almost always something about the prioritization. So and you'll notice that most of that is around portfolio management, not project management. And that, to me, anyway, Alex, I don't know if you agree with this. We've not. Yeah. I don't think we've talked about this. To me, that is the definition of why a PMO should exist, because that portfolio management stuff is something that cannot be done by definition, it can't be done within a project. You have to do it at the portfolio level. And that's why you need a PMO. The execs don't know enough, right? They don't understand projects. It's not their job to understand projects. So they need somebody to be their business partner, to help them translate their vision, to understand their pain, yeah, to understand where the business is going, and to help them shape that portfolio to deliver that, yeah, efficiently, effectively, and with low risk. That is your job as a PMO. It's to maximize the ROI from the investment in the portfolio, in other words. So anyway, there's a lot in there to unpack. Alex, what I'd love to do, because we're sort of 40 minutes in. Yeah, well, yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was just giving Guy an example, just to give you.
That's what I was going. That's exactly what I was going to ask. Go for it.
Yes, without naming the companies, the reason one, the customer, the way they have customer projects they're working on, and they have their own internal projects to improve transformation kind projects, things like process improvements or expansion or around factories and so on. So, without naming the customer, that's their portfolio. So what we did was they wanted a PMO. But like Stuart said, the definition of PMO is different from executive point of view. They think PMO means project management office. Okay, your job is to do projects, go and do this.
Yeah, and to do the reporting and the compliance and that stuff. Yeah.
But
Assurance,
then
I should say.
one of the first thing, like Stuart said, we did is actually what you need based on your symptoms and what you're telling us your problems are. You need a portfolio management office. And we start showing them the capability mapping, which apologies I don't have in front of me right now, but happy to share maybe after the call with you, which is, I think Stuart is in your blog, which is coming out soon. It's a hexagon map, and it talks about all the capability a portfolio management office or a PMO should be able to provide to the executives. And for the first time when they saw that view, they were like, oh, wow, I didn't know my PMO can do this. I can have this, I can have that, I can have this. That's all the stuff I've been looking for. There's all the problems they had. We linked it back to the capability a PMO can deliver. Based on that, we start going into fixing the basics. So we picked up 5 things we want to fix. First thing was, let's control the intake. We need to get the visibility on all the customer projects they're working on, and we need to stop people initiating any internal changes without going through the intake process. Let's put that filter in first so we can control the amount of work coming through, because the people actually doing the work is the same people. And that's where you have this overload coming in. And going back to Stuart's point, the prioritization part we need to provide. So we do the first intake. We kick off the prioritization exercise to say, how can we prioritize the workload? Have we got the right things? Are we doing the right things with the right people? And are they aligned to our strategic objectives, what we should be focusing on? The third thing we focus on is around, and this is more going into, demand and capacity management. So looking at what the work we're doing from the intake and what is the capacity we have. Is it the skills we're lacking? Or is it the, some are behavior issues, some are systematic issues? What do we need to fix in order to unlock the capacity? And, one of the fix we're putting in is just an example. To improve the long-term sustainability from a skills gap, we're reaching out to universities and students to bring them in. And again, like I said, PMO is doing it. So PMO can do a lot of stuff that people are not aware of. So we're doing that workforce analysis to say, what option can we put in place to help, bridge that gap with the skills? So we created a skills matrix and we came up with options saying, how can we fix it over the next 6 months? And how can you fix it systematically over the next 12 to 3 years? And then the fourth one, which is we talked about earlier, I think Tom mentioned, which is the lesson learned. We need to start making sure those things are fixing as we're seeing them all the way through the cycle. So those are the 4 things we've gone after first, which exec will start seeing the value. And then
and the key thing with this, right, Alex, is that you're not waiting to have a plan to fix everything before you do stuff, right? So just talk about that 90-day cycle thing a little bit more in this context.
Yes, the main part of the 90-day cycle is breaking the whole plan down into 90-day chunks. But 90-day chunks has to be aligned to the value and the benefits. That's the key part. When I keep saying the value and benefits, is doing the high value things first. Just imagine if you're doing anything, you want to get your first lap. If you're racing, you're going to get the best time in your first lap, in order to win the race. They're exactly the same. What's the best thing we can deliver to give you that visibility, to give you the buy-in, and give you the voice around the executive? And that's what we pick. Part of that case of change is picking up the right things which can deliver the maximum value. So in this case, with the customer,
just pause there for a second, Alex, if you would. So really quickly, you're going to deliver something that solves one of the problems that the execs have, that delivers value. It could be something small. It doesn't have to be anything big. It can be something small, but it's going to solve. It's going to solve a problem. Now, so a couple of the comments coming in.
So one more point to add to that, Stuart, just before I forget, is the terminology which I'm keep on using with more and more clients I'm working with is piloting. Good enough is okay. Don't look for perfection. Executive hate if you're spending too much time under the desk creating amazing process, amazing thing. At the end of the day, they said, "Oh, don't like this, hate it. What this about?" It's better to take them through the journey, piloting things, taking them through it, testing it, trialing it, and that's what this case for change is about. Is you're not good enough. It's okay. You're taking, because it's all about the journey. Change management, because you're learning and growing and you're improving all the way through those sprints. So you don't reach the perfection straight away. You're going to the perfection to get to that end goal you're looking for.
So I want to come back to case for change.
Yeah.
It's not a business case. It's a case for change. It's a living, breathing thing that evolves. So I want to come back to that idea in a minute. But before we do, so Ashok made an interesting observation. Lots of PMOs simply do not get involved in portfolio management. You're quite right, Ashok. No, they don't. But I bet you they're being held to account for delivering the projects, and I bet you they're struggling. And the reason and the root cause of those challenges in many, many cases will be portfolio management problems. So in that case, in that situation, you have two options. You can suck it up and just suffer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could do that. Or you can build yourself a case for change. Because if the problems are portfolio, if the root cause of the problems is portfolio management, then you either got to learn to live with the problems or you got to go and fix it at portfolio management. I'm not saying every problem is portfolio management, by the way. That's where I live. It's where I'm most comfortable. So I talk about that. But the most important thing in that is that just because today you are a project management office, not a portfolio level management office, that doesn't mean that's how it should be or that's how it should be forever. But, and this is where these 90-day sprints really come in. Right? You don't necessarily, you wouldn't go in that situation and say, well, we're a project management office where we just do reporting. And what we need to do is we need to jump straight to this amazing, all singing, all dancing, high maturity portfolio management office. Right? Because that's A, it's never going to work. B, they won't even understand what that means. Right? And so this case for change that Alex is talking about here is how you get them there. So the case for change is a living thing. Yeah. It's about solving their problems. It's about evolving over time. It's about continuously listening to what are your challenges now? Yeah. What's the next problem we're going to solve? And building that into 90-day cycles. So it's a journey. So it's a living thing.
Yeah. And I think just to add to Stuart's point, I think one of the work stream we make sure is embedded all the way through our sprints in that case for change. It's called organization design. And just to give people an example, we had a client we were working with, they had a PMO, sort of a reporting function, just doing reporting and basic admin. That's how they saw the PMO to be. And the end of those sprints, 4 sprints we ran with them in 12 months' time, the PMO ended up becoming a transformation office, reporting into CFO. The people start realizing all the way through those sprints, actually, the PMO is not in the right place. Oh, my PMO should be assuring. Why is in delivery? Why am I marking my own homework? But PMO shouldn't be here. It should be in finance. Oh, it should be in finance, should be in the CFO. So, people, it starts finding its own way through the benefits it's delivering into the right place it should be. Either the CEO, but it has to be at the executive level to make sure that you're providing that, the visibility. Because the visibility, like going back to your point, Stuart, I think the executive level, the PMO is the advisor, how I see them a PMO to be, is the strategic advisor to tell them when and how and what things we should be investing our money on. That's what the PMO should be doing and helping them to make decisions.
Absolutely, and it's important to meet them where they are, right? So Americo Pinto, so the president of the PMO Global Alliance. So they were bought by the PMI. So the PMI has just launched the PMO value ring and the certification and all this kind of good stuff around PMOs. And Americo talks about, being context sensitive. So if you've got an executive team that has tried to set up a PMO before, it's all failed and gone horribly wrong, then the last thing you want to do is walk in with this vision of this huge PMO that does all these amazing things and ask them for a headcount of 30. That's never going to work in that context. No. Right? So you've got to meet them where they are and find those quick wins. Guy, I'm right with you on your comment there about getting those quick wins. So those quick wins are how you establish credibility. So you may not go straight to, let's set up full portfolio management. You might start off with, hey, let's just put in place some basic reports so that we at least know how much money we're spending. You would be astonished, right? So one of the questions I ask on when I talk to new prospects is, how much do you spend on your portfolio? And I'd say half the time the answer is, we haven't a clue. Okay, so a really quick win for the execs is probably just figuring out how much you're spending.
Exactly.
It's not that hard. It's not that hard.
Exactly. And so just the other one is classic one, simple to do, guys, which I always do with my first sprint. Okay, how many meetings do I have? How many meetings I should be attending? Have I got a lean governance? It's a classic one you can win pretty quick. Okay, let's do a governance mapping. All the meetings we're having in business at the portfolio level, and where do we have overlap? So you can start cutting meetings down. What they help them is, oh, look, I don't have to attend 10 meetings. I've got 10 hours free. I can make decisions now more quicker because I don't have to attend all these meetings. The simple, quick wins like that we can deliver quickly is it's just going after those things, and making sure you're delivering
So,
them.
so we're talking about taking executives on a journey, right?
Yeah.
So again, I can't emphasize this enough. This concept of the case for change isn't a one-off thing. It's a living, breathing thing that evolves over time as you're ticking, if you're knocking down one set of problems, you got to make sure you're tackling the next set of problems, and so on and so forth. And we're talking about change management.
Yeah.
So the rest of Guy's question was about, do you follow any specific sort of change management approach, like Kotter's 8 stages or something like that?
So not, I
So
mean,
do you do that, or do you just kind of adapt to the organization, or what's your take on that?
to be honest, I think I've used EdCar and a few other change management frameworks, but I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
working on it.
PMO Joe's a big fan of ADCAR as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So, but being done it so many times now, I think it's all about what is the need of the organization. It's about the flexibility and the pace. And the change management, the way I see it, is try not to boil the ocean. It's more about, are we communicating enough? Are we hitting the right
there
stakeholder?
you go.
And are we taking people through the journey? Are people that are impacted? Are they aware of what they've been impacted on? Are we just pushing it to them saying, guys, go and use
Fabulous.
this? But it's like, hang on a minute, when did this was decided? And who told me I need to be trained on this? So those kind of things are just simple. You don't need massive Excel or different formats to be using. Is just keeping it really simple. Don't boil the ocean. Focus on the people that are impacted. Who do I need to inform? My first 101 thing I do in any company I normally go is my stakeholder map. Who my stakeholders are. And that's basically I use to do the change management. Who's going to be impacted by the things I'm going to be doing? Who do I need to inform? And who do I need to keep on the journey with me? And who's going to be my followers? So means the champions. Who's going to be my champions who I can use to make sure these things are getting embedded in the business? And those 4 or 5 things are the right mix for the way I see it. That's basically the flexibility. It gives you that flexibility and gives you that agility.
So I'm,
Give
I'm
it.
going to give you a, I'm going to paint you a scenario, Alex, and I want you
Yeah,
to tell me what happens next. Okay, so
yeah,
fun game, this one. So here's the scenario. You go through this process of active listening.
yeah,
You come up with a really cool case for change where you say, great, here are the problems you said you got, and we're going to address problems 1, 2, and 3. We've done the root cause analysis, and
yeah.
these are the, if we fix these 3 things, we're going to solve all this pain over here. And the execs say, yeah, that sounds great. Then you go off and you start executing, and you never talk to the execs again. What happens next?
The next would be they won't buy into it. They will either reject it or they will struggle to make a decision on the next steps, and they will find any way they can to not to make a decision to delay things because they don't feel comfortable. And I'll feel the same. I'm sure you'll feel the same if somebody's telling you to buy into something without telling you each step of the way, what was the history, what was the concept, what was the context, why, what, and how. I won't be comfortable making a decision into the next step because it has an impact on the business. So it's making sure they're informed all the way through. I know
Yeah.
I know it sounds it's that simple really. It's just speaking to people, making sure they're aware of what you're doing.
And I have to say, folks, and again, the reason I invited Alex on here is that this case for change thing is his superpower, right? Everybody's got a superpower of some form, right? And Alex is doing that case for change and getting execs to buy in. And part of it is the active listening. Part of it is coming up with a plan and the 90-day cycles and everything else. But I think the biggest part of Alex's success doing this and landing these high impact PMOs, taking them through a transformation process, I think his biggest success driver is the fact that he is relentless at communicating and going back again and again and again to the leadership team. That doesn't mean that you necessarily have to be meeting them. You might drop them an email or a newsletter or something, right? but constantly giving them feedback when something works, when something's delivered.
Yeah.
Alex always goes back and says, hey, I've just delivered this. Did that solve your problem? Now, of course, you are asking, did it solve the problem? But what you're really doing is you're saying, oh, look what I just did. Aren't I clever? Right.
I mean, simple things.
And
I mean, it's doing a SharePoint. SharePoint becomes your communication channel. Things like this. Anything you can find where you can, in fact, all hands call. Newsletters
yep.
that Stuart mentioned earlier. What other communication channels are available in the business? Where can I tap to get myself out there? Because the business have so many things. When you speak to your communication team, you speak to your marketing team, you will understand how many channels of communications are there. And then okay, which one can I tap all of these things to give me more visibility? It's all about visibility. I think, that's all it's about. How can I provide visibility of what I'm doing? Because if they don't know what you're doing, you will struggle to get that seat on the table you're looking for.
I'm going to be more specific than that, Alex. If they don't know what you're doing, they will assume you're doing nothing.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Right? That's if you're not telling them, if you're not sharing successes, they will assume you're doing nothing. So I have two more questions. The last one is, I'm picking up a vibe from some of the questions that people would like to talk to you to follow up. So the last question is going to be, how do people get in touch with you to ask more questions? For everybody, we do record these sessions. You will get sessions. There will be some webinars and things like that we're going to send you that will be related to the topic. So one of them will be a webinar we did with Laura Barnard, for example, that's related to this. So that will be coming. But before we get there, right, we've been talking about PMOs. But we're actually talking about delivering business value and business strategy. So is PMO the right name? Sounds like a silly question, right? But does it make a difference? Because you talked about one being called the Transformation Office earlier, one of the ones you mentioned. So does the name matter? Should we be married to being PMOs, or should we just call it whatever the business wants? What's your experience?
I think it makes of both. I think changing the name in the first instance is probably the wrong thing to be doing. Until you have those, I call them stripes. Get your stripes first on your shoulders, and then you tell them what you wanted to call. You can call it, I call PMO, VMO before, Value Management Office. I call them Transformation Management Office. They're doing the same thing, but what that differs from people's perspective. So they're used to having a project management office doing reporting, attendance tracking, time tracking, POs, and so on. But now they have a portfolio management office. So you're trying to differentiate yourself. Makes sense. But unless you get the stripes, and if you change your name too early in the process, people will just say, okay, they're just rebranding it, but with the same management. So it's going to be a shit show. Pardon my language, but but it's going to be the same problem again.
Sleep deprived daddy.
Yeah, exactly. I need to remember my words. Yeah, thank you.
Don't worry. I've said worse on live on webinars. So Tom says strategic portfolio management. I love it. And some of our partners actually ask the executives once they've earned their stripes, as Alex said. So get in there, deliver some value first, get some momentum so they're excited about it. And that's the point you want to say. What do you guys want to call this? And if you ask the leadership team that, they never, ever call it a PMO. They will call it, a value realization office, a strategy execution office, a strategy realization office, a business transformation office. They'll call it all kinds of things, but they will never, ever call it a PMO. But I love your point, Alex. Don't change the name too early, because then it looks like a cynical attempt just to rebrand the same old nonsense.
Exactly.
Right? And you'll just lose them right there, then. So in this journey, just a little bit about us. So those of you who know us, so TransparentChoice is a software company, and underpinning all of this stuff, this portfolio management piece in particular, that's what we do, right? So our software really helps do that. Leverage, really great decision science, collaboration capabilities, AI, all kinds of things to really make that portfolio management piece, if you discover that's part of your root cause, right? The prioritization and the resource capacity planning, things like that. We do that really, really well. But, and I will say this to anybody and everybody, usually the first thing you need to do is not go buy software. The first thing you need to do is take time to build that case for change. So Alex, if somebody wants help to build, hey Becca, good to see you as well, and Mohammed, actually, I should have said hi to Mohammed. If somebody would like some help thinking through their case for change or starting their process, where should they go? How can they find you? How can they reach out to you?
So they can reach out to me through my website, or what I'll do is maybe I will drop in my email address after this call, or through Lenore, or I'm happy to put on the chat, or part of the material we're going to be sending out. So please feel free to reach out to me, and happy to sit down with you, take you through.
So Lenora's on the call. So Lenora, if you could make a note and just add Alex's contact details to the email that goes out, that would be fantastic. Perfect. So reach out directly to you. The company name is
Value Matrix.
Value Matrix. Fantastic.
I just want to show something. Stuart was talking about, prioritization and, the tooling, but I just want to show something. By the way, guys, look. The ducks.
Fantastic.
So I've got a collection of them happening. So,
well, do you know, one of the people I'd prepped to maybe step in, but we didn't have time in the event, so I apologize. But one of the guys I'd prepped to maybe step in is Ike, who is the chairman of the PMI. And so I see Ike at all these conferences. So he's now up to 4 ducks. He's got a little duck farm going at home. So every conference we meet, I give him one more duck. So the ducks are great. And anyone who doesn't know about ducks, head over to our website and just start watching some of the videos and things, and it won't be long before you start seeing rubber ducks appearing. And fantastic. Excellent. All right. So anyone that would like some, go ahead, Alex.
I'm just saying, where can you find you next, basically? Where are you going to be next after the bar?
Maybe Lenora can pitch in with an answer on that one. Lenora just tells me, I wake up on a Monday morning, it's like, Lenora, what country am I in this week? But the next one I can think of on the top of my head is going to be Riyadh in May. No, Barcelona. We're doing Barcelona, right, in April. So the PMI is doing their global summit in April. I'm going to be giving a talk there. And we're going to be talking on a very similar sort of topic. So why execs hate PMOs, to paraphrase. But I'm going to be looking at 4 specific techniques, portfolio management techniques you can use to fix it. So once you've done that root cause analysis, and if you discover the portfolio management piece is broken, I'll be talking about how you can take 4 very specific portfolio management techniques and really massively ramp up the value that you're going to deliver to the business. So hopefully I'll see some of you in Barcelona in April.
But if you want to catch the deal, me and Stuart together, we're going to be in Riyadh in May, I think. We are coming together.
Yeah, that's the plan. So, we'll be in Riyadh at the Global Project Management Forum, the GPMF, in Riyadh, which will be fun. And I think you're going to see an incredible group of people out there. Barcelona's got an incredible group of people. We're still working on who the speakers are going to be for Riyadh. But I've started to see some of the nominations come in, and there's some phenomenal people. So that's going to be an amazing event as well. So depending where you are in the world, come find Wally. Come, or in America, if you're in America, it's Waldo. And we'll be appearing at a conference center near you very soon. So thank you very much. If you're new to our webinars, thank you for joining us. We do this about once a month. We do a demo webinar once a month, and we do one of these once a month where we look at kind of best practice and thought leadership stuff. We bring in, we try and bring in the best of the best to share their knowledge. So Alex, I want to thank you for sharing your knowledge today. We barely, this is such a big topic. We barely even scratched the surface. So thank you for sharing your knowledge. And I do encourage everybody to get on, connect on LinkedIn with Alex, Alexander David. Go connect with Alex online on LinkedIn, or drop him a note if you want a little bit of help with that case for change. Awesome. Thank you, everybody.